Ladies and gentlemen, Hebrews and Shebrews, welcome to the Life Podcast. Today we're talking to Matt Hoffmann about entrepreneurship. He's going to tell us how he landed a contract to provide the chosen coffee, like the television show. And he'll talk to us about his other business endeavors. He'll talk to us about his advice for running a business to all you Hebrews out there, your entrepreneurial Hebrews. And he'll talk to us about employing other Hebrews in your business and doing business within the community, within the greater Christian community, really, and why that's important. He'll also talk to us about a church model that is different than the mainstream, that tries to leverage all of the talents of the people going to that church. So also, today's my birthday, and later today, me and the other patrons from Patreon are getting together for a drink at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to join us, go to Patreon and find the Life Podcast. And thank you to all the patrons, and thank you to all the watchers. Thanks so much for making this happen. We love making the Life, and we hope you love watching it. If you love it, like, share, subscribe, tell people about it. 5-star us somewhere. Join us on Patreon. So without further ado, I give you Matt Hoffmann. I have not ever been able to grow this part.
Oh, the soul patch.
So I've always looked more Amish. And even if, no matter what I do, I look like an Amish. Yeah, it's the natural.
The ring.
I'm natural.
The beard ring.
Yeah. Which sucks. You know, it's hard to make that look good. So finally, the mustache came in like a year ago. I'm 37. It took a long time.
You're 37?
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, it took a really long, maybe 35. That's funny.
Not really sure. Stop counting at 29.
No, 35 is about when I started using
Oh,
the
gotcha.
mustache.
Yeah.
Before that, there was nothing.
Yeah.
But
apparently there are things you can do. Like you can put some cream on there and stuff. I don't know.
No, is it true? Is this a wives' tale that if you shave more, you'll grow more hair on your face?
I don't think it's a wives' tale.
Really?
I don't know.
That's what my buddy. All right, so see, I get 50-50 always.
Yeah.
I get some people are like, no matter how much you shave, you're never gonna get any more.
It's too late for me to go back. I don't know.
Well, you know,
it opens the pores, right? That's the point of like the cream, is to open the pores. And somebody told me one time that people with beards are like trusted 80% more of the time, something like that. I don't know. I also heard that 80% of statistics are made up on the spot. So I don't know.
Roald Dahl, he has a book about this bearded guy called The Twits, and he says bearded men never go hungry. Because you always have extra food.
You always got something. I'm saving it for later.
I need to go bigger.
What frustrates me, though, is when you're like that for like 3 or 4 hours, and your wife doesn't tell you, like, hey, there's something in your face. Fix it.
Women don't care. They stopped looking at us long ago, Matt. They stopped looking at us like after the wedding.
Yeah.
I've reeled him in. That's the end of my job. I'm sorry.
Made it.
For better or worse. But Matt, welcome to the Life Podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Luke. I'm excited to be here.
Tell us about starting the coffee business, if you will.
Yeah.
And then lead up to this most recent deal, if you can.
Okay. So one of the things that my wife and I decided, and we were actually sitting together in our living room, and we were praying about what business should we start. And we had been through so many businesses that are very niche and very, in some ways, very restricted in the industry. And I won't go into all of that, but we're like, we need a product or a service or something that is widely accepted, it's recession-proof, all of this, right? And I said, well, what if we did coffee? And let's not do our name. I've never roasted a bean in my life. To date, I still have not roasted a bean. And you might think, well, you have a coffee company, you've never roasted a bean? Yeah, it's great. I love it. But nobody knows Matt Hoffmann. Nobody knows Empyr Coffee. But they know their school. They know their church. They know their charity. They know their favorite artists. They know their favorite sports, whatever. And so we decided, well, let's private label. Let's put their name on it where people know about them. and they can tie into their charity. There's a lot of collaboration you can do with that, right? So we started, and in the meantime, I set up all the business stuff. You register with the state and do all that, set everything up, the bank accounts. You do all the basic admin work, and meanwhile, we had an elder meeting at my house where we were going to be watching a release of The Chosen. And I remember Dallas coming on the screen and just talking about these gifts that you can purchase. You can pay it forward so that somebody else in the world can watch this show, right? And be impacted by the gospel. And I remember looking at my wife, and she looked at me, and a couple of the other elders looked, and we were all like, we're going to make The Chosen coffee. And we just all had that epiphany all at the same time. I have no idea where to even start. No idea. Like, how do you even start? Like, who do you email? Who do you call? Like, hey, we can make coffee for you, And just an aside, I love coffee as a fundraiser because it's subscribable. So you can take one fundraising opportunity and turn it into 12 or more, right? So you're 12xing your profits from the same marketing. You get the same marketing ROI, and it just grows and expands. Anyway, so we found out that one of our elders' wives was connected to the production designer, James Cunningham. And so I just started talking to him, because nobody wants someone who's like, hey, immediately selling something. I don't really, I wouldn't want somebody doing that to me. And so let's not do that. But we befriended him, and then we started just becoming a part of following what they were doing behind the scenes, and it was incredible. And I started sending him coffee samples. Just, I would make a little Chosen label on it and send it. It was kind of cheesy looking, whatever, but it was what it was. And then I didn't hear anything, and so okay, well, maybe that didn't work. So I think they were finishing season 3. And so we decided, well, we're just going to send a ton of coffee. It's going to be so much coffee that it would be hard to miss, really hard to miss. So we sent it as a gift. We said, thank you for doing what you guys, and I really believe this. I mean, the Chosen's been an incredible impact on, if you're a Sabbath keeper at all, because they do it in the show, and they keep Sabbath in the show. So anyway, we said, congratulations on finishing the filming for season 3. And I think we sent 60 pounds of coffee. It was significant. And we sent some to the marketing, some to the cast and crew, some to the executive team, and all of that. And inside of each box, we put just a sheet with a QR code. And so we could kind of see if anyone scanned it, and it was a video of me just congratulating them and sharing how thankful we were for the work they were doing. So we started getting views. Oh, they're seeing it. They're actually seeing this. This is crazy. So long story short, we got a little thank you card in the mail. Thank you for the gift of the coffee. And we're like, oh my gosh, is this it? Is this what this was? We did all of that. And then we got a little thank you card. And I'm, incredible that we even got to send it. So, and this is how God works. So I'm getting ready to go down to Dallas, Texas for something completely unrelated. And, they film near Dallas. So I called up James. I'm like, hey, James, can I, when I'm down there, can I just come by the set and maybe we can hang out for a little bit? I took him to dinner and whatever. He said, sure. Anyway, on the way down, there's this massive ice storm. And instead of going south, I end up getting diverted going north. So it routed me through where my sister lives. So I thought, well, if I don't stop and talk to my sister and see the kids, she's going to be so mad. So I decided I'm going to stop. her husband gets home and says, hey, you're going down to Dallas area, and I teach these two band students of mine, and their dad just got hired on at the Chosen. I was like, no kidding. Well, that's cool. What does he do? So he didn't know. So we looked it up and found out he was on the executive team. And so we ended up connecting. And when I went down, and we were able to talk about the coffee and all this stuff, but found out later that they actually, I didn't think about this as being a problem, but they actually burned all of the coffee. Nobody drank any of our coffee because, well, you think about it, if somebody was going to sabotage something, they could have, poison or something, whatever. Anyway, the lesson for me was sometimes like God will put an ice storm in your path to redirect you. And while we're kind of like, so frustrated and angry about that diversion, that if we would have gone the other way, we'd miss the blessing. And so huge blessing. So long story short, we ended up, we're private labeling for the Chosen, and they're doing a mug and a coffee bundle, and we're just so grateful that God kind of made those connections for us.
This episode of the Life Podcast is brought to you by The Way documentary, The Truth, Reformation 2.0 Apologetics book, and Truth Tracks. The Way documentary tells the story of our movement. This is the story of people who were trading Easter ham for Passover lamb and Sunday church for Saturday Sabbath, all in an effort to live like their Savior. It dives into their stories through their own voices and into the history and theology that show how the church got to where it is today. The Truth, Reformation 2.0 is the only book of its kind, an all-encompassing theological treatise that answers every question a mainstream Christian might have about why you want to keep Torah. And finally, Truth Tracks are small comics, beautifully illustrated, that use stories and scripture to remind Christians that once we are saved by grace through faith, we are called to live and do the instructions of Yah, his Torah. If you want to learn more about any of these products, go to thewaydoc.com. That's theway, D-O-C, like documentary.com.
It's incredible.
Amazing. It's bizarre almost that you had a connection there, The Chosen. It just didn't work. Yeah. And then you had this random connection through your sister band teaching of the kids of the executive. That does seem random. That does seem completely
And I would have
unknown.
never even known. We would have never even talked about it.
Wow.
So maybe the point here is that I think what does the scripture say? Submit your way before the Lord, lean on your own understanding, acknowledge him in all your ways, and he'll make your path straight. And so I think God does want to partner with us in a sense. He wants to work with us, and he wants us to actually work with him, right? So the Lord did it. The Lord did it. Good. Yahweh did that.
Yeah.
Again, nobody knows Matt Hoffmann. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? We're all like distracted with life and doing our own thing,
But he knows you.
But he knows.
And he works everything together for the good.
He does. He does.
Those who love him and keep his commandments.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the whole thing, isn't it?
Well, now you're preaching. A friend of mine says if you keep that up, we're going to have to take an offering.
I would like to circle back to that a little bit. Because do you think people coming into this Torah thing, most of them are very disillusioned with the mainstream Christian church model of big church, this guy preaching every week, this guy up there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they move so far over to this house church idea, and many of them, sadly, they're so far from anyone else that they have no group of people to worship with at all.
Yeah.
And so, all right, all of this is eventually coming to the question of, what do you think is the good and the bad of that model that we see, the mainstream Christian church model? And what's the good and the bad? From your personal experience leading worship and then realizing that you had to leave that.
Well, I think some obvious negatives. I don't think people really know each other. You know, um, just thinking out loud. When I went to college, one of the main things that I was looking at was the teacher to student ratio. You know, like you can go to a big public school where there's, maybe there's like 400 or 500 people in a class, or you can be one of 14. I think that we miss a lot of the actual connection. And the bigger churches get, I think the more corporate it has to become, in a sense. Like that's the world's mindset. It has to be, you gotta have a pastor for this, pastor for that, and then you start running it like a business, which it's good to have some business acumen and some business experience. And I would never say, you don't necessarily need that. But when you're running something that was intended to be a family, you're running it like a business, there's a disconnect. What the point of business is what? A bottom line. The bottom line. What's your revenue? What's your income? What's your profit? What's your profit margin? And I think at a certain level, larger churches become about the bottom line, where the people should be the bottom line. The kingdom is more about reaching people, not having a profit, right? So actually, what do we actually see? We see tithing is down. We see offerings are down. People are still struggling with finances and all this stuff. And you have to pay for the building. It's an overhead. You have to pay for the building. So what are you taking away from? Ministry. So to me, that's a huge negative. Some of those things are you have to have them. You have to have a place to meet, right? And you're going to grow. But how do you approach it then? Do you split? You know what I mean? Do you intentionally branch off, or do you get a larger building? It's a tough decision. But I think the benefit of having the smaller congregation is you're connected like a family. You really are. And that's what we've tried to do. It's what we've tried to be. I know, I think we talked about this before, but my intention as a worship leader was never to chase the career, never to chase the salary bump. It was more about, am I called to this people? And if I'm called to this people, it doesn't matter. I'm family. I was trying to look at it like a family. So we lead our congregation from that mindset, as opposed to that corporate top-down sort of mentality. It's more of, we're here to serve. We're here to help everyone grow. We're not relying on one person at the top to have all of the answers. It's more like the puzzle piece. The more puzzle pieces you add, the clearer the picture becomes. So we try to approach church from that perspective. And what's the benefit? The people are empowered. The people are inspired. They're motivated. They see that they're having an impact from their direct actions.
Wow, that's great. It seems like a better way to do it. How do you solve the pragmatic problems of, like, you were a worship leader full-time, you needed enough money to survive so your wife didn't have to live.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do both? And it sounds like you may be working on this sort of thing, and you may have ideas of how to solve it for this group.
We made an intentional move a few years in 2018. The church transitioned from a paid staff to a non-paid staff. And what that means, pragmatically, is one person can't do it all, which is great because, for me, I didn't want to do it all. Nobody wants to do it all. So we actually have an elder-led congregation, and our intentions are to have all of the fivefold aspects of ministry represented at that table. So now when we're making a decision, it's not strictly from a pastoral perspective, which is only 20% of the fivefold, right? What about from the prophetic standpoint? Or what about from the apostolic perspective or the evangelist perspective? And I always thought that was odd when you go to church. Like, why is it just the pastor who gets the big paycheck? Why is that? We're literally only seeing 1/5 of what it takes for the maturing of the body. So we tried to design it what I think is a little bit more of a biblical approach, which is to have that elder-led fivefold ministry leading. And honestly, I feel like, and I tell our guys this too, I feel like we're just the first followers. Is Yeshua truly leading your congregation? And that's a question we have to ask every week. Is Yeshua truly leading your congregation? How do you lead and stay out of the way at the same time? It's a challenge. Human nature is to control and try to wrap your arms around something and manipulate it to be what you want it to be. And letting go is probably the hardest thing to do, but that's what we're trying to do on a weekly basis for our Shabbat meetings. And as an example, we have 5 worship leaders in our small congregation. 5.
Wow.
Some of them are a lot better than I am, and I can be excited about that. I can get behind that. I can rejoice with that.
Is that so you don't get overwhelmed? Like, I have to do this every week. I'm in the man in control always.
Yeah.
That's why, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because this is it is a kind of a full-time job when you're doing this one thing and you're the only guy.
Right.
So you're saying that the solution to the overwhelm and the overhead, like the massive overhead of like a big box church, is to spread the load across multiple leaders.
Yeah.
So it's maybe multiple pastors or multiple people preaching, multiple people leading worship, so that no one gets overwhelmed?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And it goes back to really the Great Commission is to make disciples. What is a disciple? It's someone who follows in the footsteps. And I think, like the rabbis say, you take the same footsteps so that the dust gets on that your rabbi walked on, it gets on your sandals too. So it's literally walking in the same footsteps. So success for us is having someone that can take my place.
That's perfect.
It's servanthood. And I think it's revolutionary, honestly.
You're training up people who would otherwise likely be sitting there watching you.
Right. Now, we're not perfect at it. So if you tune into our live stream or whatever you're going to do, or if you come visit, like, we are not perfect, but I can tell you that we're actively involving people, actively trying to help them get out of their shell and take steps of faith. Right now, we just had a ministry meeting about our children, because our children, like, those are our first responsibilities, right? They are our responsibility. The first discipleship responsibility is our children. And so what does it look like for children to prophesy? What does it look like for children to lay hands on each other, or draw prophetically, or whatever, or sing prophetically? What does that even look like? How do we get there? Those are the things that they're the next generation, right? Some of them are 2 generations back, for our older guys, but how do we bring them along and get them to take the same steps? Paul said, like, follow me as I follow Yeshua, right? It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. And somebody will probably correct me. This is maybe not exactly perfect, but the sin of the Nicolaitans was almost kind of a monopoly on leadership. And it's almost like you have to go through me to get to God. You know what I mean? And it can turn into very manipulative, very controlling and narcissistic sort of
It did for millennia.
It did.
In the Catholic Church at minimum.
Yeah. So breaking out of that, the question then is, instead of how do we control, it's how do we serve? How do we lift up? How do we engage? Right?
Yes, because ultimately these children are going to be making their own decisions of whether they believe this stuff, whether they even want to live the way their dad lived or not. And what we want, I think, getting them directly involved at a young age so that they can feel whether, is this what they believe? Is this their thing? Let it be part of their lives and the fabric of their being. And then, maybe they will keep doing this when they get older.
Yeah. And look at the age. So, like, I have had some of our parents say, like, I don't know if I would trust my, 12-year-old to go walk down to the store and get, groceries or whatever. But yet you have, like, I was thinking about David, King David before he was King David. And he's the one that's saying, no, you Philistine, you will not mock our God like that. And he's doing it at a young age, Like, I think we need to have higher expectations for the children. 100%. 100%.
Because they're not scared. They are zealous, like David was.
Yeah. And they need to get out of their phones. But we all do. We all need to get out of our phones.
Yes.
Yeah.
My gosh. I feel like there needs to be a test before you're allowed to have a phone. And even adults some adults should not be allowed to have a phone. This is one of the most, to me, this is the biggest problem, one of the larger problems in society. Yeah. That you should have to have a test to see if you deserve this thing or not.
Yeah.
But
you lose you almost lose all creativity. One of our elders showed a picture at one of our recent meetings of it. His son was dressed up in like these boxes, not for Halloween, but it was like pretending to be a robot. And the caption was, as soon as you give your child a phone, this ends. And that's so sad. So sad.
But it's true. And now we know it. So we better act like we know it. Yeah. Most people, it's easier though. Yeah. Of course, when they're younger also, it's easier. Oh, watch Blippi,
Yeah.
Watch Blippi so mama can not
zone
go
out.
Insane. I mean, that's also important. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the kids zone out. Well, we zone out too.
So, okay, you've totally upended the Christian, church model. And basically, and what do people think? I mean, the new worship leaders who are also, starting to step into those roles, they're being stretched a little. Mm-hmm. And I know that's hard to. Sometimes you need a little push, and that's important because, that is what it means to disciple someone. Is sometimes you're putting them out of their comfort zone. And I think that's the problem with the pew structure, is that you're not, as an analogy, because you're not pushed out of your comfort zone. It is very comfortable, but it's not stretching you. So what do they think about being stretched? And how's it been? How's it going?
Well, I think everyone's learning, yes, you're right. You have to step out of your box. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier about you have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to laugh at yourself because, you probably know this. If you speak long enough, you are going to say something wrong or funny or whatever. And if you're so concerned about how you look versus just, going after the point of what you're trying to accomplish, you'll stop dead in your tracks. So I think this is one of the things we say around the congregation, the community all the time, is you just have to learn to laugh at yourself. And it's okay because we're all laughing, I laugh at myself every week. I say things like, why did I say that? And then do we edit it out of the live stream? No, because it's real, it's genuine, and we have this produced culture now, and I don't know. Right. You just have to be real. I think people appreciate that.
You're right.
So the feedback I think has been really positive, and from the congregation too. So, we do the same thing with our teachers. So we rotate. I might teach once a month. I might lead worship once a month, and so the load is very light. But the feedback from the congregation is, well, I appreciate it when Mark Jacob teaches, or I appreciate when Jim teaches, or Anthony, because they say it in a way that maybe, Matt wouldn't. They say it in a different way. They bring out different elements, different aspects, maybe because one of them has more of an evangelist sort of bent, right? And another one might be more pastoral. So you see all of these colors, and it's fulfilling in that way. It reaches different people, different flavors.
You're actually leveraging the talents in the body of Christ.
Right. Well, that's what we're trying to do. I love Sukkot. It's one of my favorite feast days, or feast seasons. Every year, it just feels like it's a prophetic collaborative amongst everybody that's there. So somebody might have a dream, and we encourage everybody, if you have a dream or if you have a word, speak up, step out, say something, because it might be a confirmation for somebody else, or it might add clarity to it, what somebody else is getting. It's that other piece. What does it say? We see in part, and we know, so we need the other parts. So we always press in to that kind of a mindset. And it's just amazing what blossoms out of that, what prophetic picture blossoms out of that.
Wow, man. This is cool what you guys are doing. It's crazy.
But the hard thing for a leader is, would you show up to a church service with nothing prepared? How comfortable would you feel? If you didn't, let me ask it this way. If you didn't have something to share, would you say that and then ask, does someone else have something to share? Those are tough questions, but we've had those moments. And God always comes through. God always has somebody share something. And it brings this beautiful message out that we would have never had. If you try to force a message.
It's living faith, man.
Yeah.
It's living faith.
It's living faith, yeah.
You have the faith.
It's really hard.
I believe it. Fargun, man.
Fargun. Fargun blargun.
Fargun bargain. Let's get into that.
Fargun barn.
Let's get. Wait, tell us about Fargun bargain, will you? I know.
Fargun blargun was it was my little fake cuss word back in the day. Fargun blargun.
And what?
You know what? It probably means something. I should probably look it up before.
What if it's Yiddish? What if it's some Yiddish?
It probably is.
Fargun. Tell us about Fargun, though.
Okay, so this is my understanding of Fargun. Okay, so I'm not Jewish by ancestry, to my knowledge. Probably have a little bit. Who knows? But it's a Yiddish word that it kind of describes this circular economy in the Jewish culture, but it also is kind of an idea of wanting to see, like, rejoicing with your brother, rejoicing with them over their successes, and not having that jealousy or envy, right? So you think about different cultures that do business with each other. A lot of times we think of, like, the Indian culture. They might bring their cousins over, and they're establishing businesses, they're buying businesses, they're expanding franchises and all that type of stuff. That's a perfect picture of Fargun. You see the Muslim community doing it. You see the Chinese community doing it. You see the Jewish community doing it. So it's the idea of doing business together to see your brother succeed. I would put it this way in our community. If Jim has a pressure washing company and you need pressure washing done, you better use Jim. Why? Even if he's more expensive, why? Because you know that it's going to bless his family, number one, and you can rejoice in that. And if that isn't enough, he's going to tithe on his earnings back to the community, so you can rejoice in that. And then his kids are going to go to the same school, and he's going to be feeding into that. And then you know what? He's going to buy coffee from me, or he's going to get your accounting services from you. So it's this beautiful interconnectedness from a commerce standpoint, just of doing business with each other and promoting each other. Some of the most well-attended outside church events, extracurricular, non-Bible study type events that we've just had business meetings, marketing meetings, where you bring your business idea and we'll help you come up with some marketing concepts, or maybe we'll introduce you to someone across the aisle there that you didn't even know that they were the supplier for what you need. And there's a lot of collaboration. Those have been some of the most well-attended church meetings that we've had ever. And so we still do those from time to time. I had a friend of mine who was talking about going to a Jewish business meeting. So when you think about like a church business meeting, what are some of the topics? Well, we need to get a new children's director, or we need to expand the children's wing, or we need to resurface the asphalt, or get a new roof, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's all very consumer minded. And my friend was telling about this experience that he had. He went to a Jewish business meeting. They went to the synagogue, and so-and-so got up and they said, well, he's expanding to a second franchise and he needs a $10,000 investment. Who's going to invest? And then another person got him and said, they need to bring in, $20,000 worth of inventory. Who's going to partner with him on that? And those were the topics of the business meeting in the Jewish society and in the Jewish culture. I love that. Wow. I love that. So that's what we're trying to promote, is this idea of firgun. But it feeds back into the culture. It feeds back into the community just by doing it. And people always say, like, well, the problems are so big. How do we start something like that? Plant a seed if you have to. Start with something. Start anywhere, but start. Encourage your people to branch out into business, have a business idea, collaborate. I like to say that we don't really compete, we like to collaborate. So we have competitors in the coffee industry that, like I said before, we've been able to pick their brains and get valuable industry information, even though they're a competitor. But we've also given them marketing concepts and different things that are succeeding for us. Why? Well, if the coffee industry gets better, all of us benefit. It's the same way in our communities. Firgun is the idea that everyone benefits and we support each other.
It seems like people are starting to think about this, in the last few decades for the first time, just, maybe I should not get it if it's made in China, for example. I'd rather get it if it's made in America. I don't know. Because before, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it's more like, well, what's the cheapest, most efficient, best product? Yeah. And this is America, and that's how this works, And so that's how we would do our selection. Yeah. And then Amazon comes, big boom, okay, let's get everything on Amazon. And then people start pulling back from that a little, it seems like. And they're being more discretionary in their purchasing. It sounds like that's what you're talking about, only like from a larger perspective of let's employ our guys.
Yeah, so you have to answer for yourself what's important. Is cost important? Is convenience important? Or is your friend going out of business less important than those things? Here's the reality. Okay, I've had people in our congregation come to me and say, I can't make rent or whatever, and we would just give them money anyway. We would give them funding so that they don't lose their house or whatever the situation is. We would do that anyway. What if we could do that just by helping them with their business? Perfect example. We had this couple come to us, and they had a medical issue with their son, and they had to put their business on hold for, I think, like 3 or 4 months. And so they lost an entire quarter of revenue. I said, well, what's your business? Bounce house. company, Bounce House Rental. And you know what? I could have given them $1,700, whatever it was, to make their house payment or whatever. But instead, I bought and I pre-purchased $1,700 worth of Bounce House Rental for our community. I said, the only caveat is I want to be able to use this whenever I need it, right? We'll still schedule it out and all of that, with all the details and everything. So we're not trying to overrun anybody else.
Yeah.
But how empowering is that, as opposed to here's a handout?
I bet you've used it too. Those are
Oh yeah, they're very cool, and they have snow cones and stuff too. So but we use that from time to time as we have outreaches and different things. But
wow,
that we have to start asking ourselves, what's more important? Is saving $2 because I bought it on Amazon really worth it? Is getting it tomorrow? Yeah, another story. Friend of ours is getting married, and we have seamstresses in our congregation. Instead, they're looking at buying their dress on Amazon. Actually, it's not in our direct congregation, so anyone who's watching, don't think this I'm talking about you. But that's what I'm talking about. So you're literally taking provision, God's provision. God gave that person the talent to do that.
This is a mind shift.
It is a mind shift. And it's a step of faith. It's pay it forward. But I've absolutely had that happen 100%. The people that I've purchased from come back and purchase from me. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I hope that this goes,
Yeah.
I've heard a few guys at Sukkot also talking about something similar over in Indiana, and they were like, wouldn't it be great if we all knew what profession was? Well,
Yeah.
The first thing is, not everyone knows what Jim does or Bob does at church.
Right.
It's like, oh, he comes, he's a little dirty. He might be where he might wear in the trades, whatever,
Yep.
Maybe he's in the trade. But you don't know. It's like we don't wear that on our sleeves.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It would be nice. How can we solve this?
So I'm actually connected with some guys that are actually building the solution right now. They call it affectionately the Everything app. I can't really talk a whole lot about it, but it is coming. I think the solution is you have to start in your immediate congregation, your immediate community. You have to start there and do whatever you can do. Start having those business meetings. Hey, what desires do you have? What solutions do you want to provide? What things can you do? And just start brainstorming those ideas. And then what these friends of mine are working on is an app to kind of take those different communities, whether it's churches or businesses, business groups, and bring them all together. But there's a lot of opportunity, and the opportunity, if you look at the volume that Amazon is doing, it's huge. I think it's almost was it like $600 billion a year that they do? I could be wrong. All of the statisticians and all of the
I believe that you're right, even though I have no idea. But that sounds
all the truth police out there are going to correct me on that. But let's just say it's 500 billion. Okay. That's a lot of commerce. What percentage of that do you think is through Christians? Probably a pretty good percentage. Instead of fueling Amazon or fueling Bezos or fueling what they care about, what if we could say, no, we're going to capture our own commerce and fuel things of the kingdom? And it's easy to just push that off because it's such a big task. It's daunting. Will it ever get accomplished that we're able to capture our own commerce? I don't know. But again, it's like you have to start somewhere. You have to start with a seed somewhere.
And there have been rumblings of this alternate economy stuff in recent years because of the kind of values of a lot of large companies that don't align with our
Yeah.
values.
And it's so hard to even know because, and I have this too as my business structure. I have a holdings company and I have this company and it's a pass through for this one and, and so on and so forth. It's a big matrix. So you might have, the conspiracy guy. I mean, you look at Blackwater, State Street, Vanguard, and they own, I think, collectively like enough. They're the largest holder of like Disney, I believe. So who's making the decisions? Who's having an impact on what our children are watching? Like, right? So
Vivek Ramaswamy talks about this. He talks about how they nudge things in the shareholder meeting.
But you don't know who owns what. I have a friend who has like 150 plus businesses in his whole organization. You probably recognize some of the brands, but you don't know that it's his holding company. So he's ultimately controlling what those companies do. So I think we need to start being aware of that. To your point, I don't know I'll say it this way. What I've seen of what Bezos does, I don't think that we support the same, we don't have the same mindset. We don't support the same goal.
Doesn't align with your...
It doesn't align. It doesn't align with the kingdom.
So then there's two reasons here, large reasons. More philosophical than pocketbook, sadly.
Perfect.
But the two philosophical reasons are, one, you're supporting your brother.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Two, you're taking some income away from people that are actively doing things that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
And you're diverting that.
They're actually fighting us. They're actually fighting against the kingdom, and we're empowering it.
And we're doing it because it is cheap.
Yeah.
And it is convenient.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the hard part.
The third leg to that is you can also empower your brother. So you can disempower the enemy, but you can also empower your brother. Most people are in the exact same situation. They're probably scared. They're scared to step out. They don't have maybe the income, or they don't have the nest egg to launch a business or buy a business or whatever the case may be. And we're all in the same boat. Another friend of mine's like, employment's not going to get you there. Employment is not. I think the way he said is 98% of employees fail. But how many businesses? What's the failure rate? I think it's like 80% failure rate of businesses or something. But 98, there's an 18% delta there. So you're better off. You have a better chance of success and actually hitting the goal and maybe the dream that God put inside of you if you step out into business.
Personal recent story. One of the guys in our little church group, he was working as a plumber for someone. Things didn't work out because of the feast. They wouldn't give him the feast off. And he's like, I've been wanting to start a business. And he did. And he's been like full booked for the last 8 months. And I think 80% of the jobs are from people in the little group. Just because they all happen to need random drywalling, plumbing stuff. It just happened. You're right.
Not only that, but they're probably promoting to their neighborhood and their friends and family. Yes. Hey, you need to use Bill for...
And he's also great. He's great. Yeah. He's dedicated. And this is another thing. The other thing is that usually if these people really are practicing what they're preaching or believing, then they're going to be dedicated, hardworking, put the customer first. Yes. And if they're not, then, why are they even there in the church after all?
Which the Torah, that's really the point of the Torah. Teach you how to interact. Well, this way too, but...
Yes, regulate our actions.
Yeah.
Actions. Yeah. You're right, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's there for.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, so they're working on an app to maybe solve that. And I'm interested in hearing more of that. I hope
It's
you'll keep us
everything from a
updated.
social media element to, one of the biggest problems is payment processing. So like PayPal will get 3% of whatever, or whatever the case may be, right? So you
Yeah.
have MasterCard and Visa. Well, what if you could take 1% instead of 3 and actually put it into a venture capital fund that's going to fund more businesses
in this sphere.
in this sphere, in our culture, in our community.
Show me where to sign, Matt.
Right. It really would be that simple. But part of it is you just need the other
It's gonna be
alternative.
built. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're almost in alpha testing right now. I believe they're actually getting ready to release the alpha test here in the next week or two. So
For the
it's kind of
payment
exciting.
processor or for the app?
The whole app, all of it.
That has a payment processor in it
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Another thing we're looking at that we're in the development talks over is a Hebraic credit union. And you can go and do the math, okay, but look at how much interest versus principal you pay on your home loan, for example. Say 7 to 10 years, how much you actually pay. You might have a 3.5% interest rate, but go back and actually do the calculation and look at how much was interest versus how much was principal, and you'll have an effective interest rate. And maybe that's the wrong terminology, but it's the actual interest rate that you paid to use that money. And there's a reason why the whole loan is front loaded. The mortgage is front loaded. Why? Because most people end up moving or refinancing 7 to 10 years. So you're actually giving, say it's 30, 35, 40% interest rate that you're actually paying.
At the beginning. And
You
could
pay
reference
$1,000, 400 of that might be interest.
Yes. At the
Or
beginning,
worse, the opposite,
At the beginning of the payment period.
And then you refinance. Well, who gets that money? Well, what if the credit union, where the members are actually the owners, benefit from that? So there's a lot to to do to bring that to fruition. But I mean, I just had a conversation with a gentleman 2 days ago, 3 days ago, that we're gonna launch this together.
Will you keep us up to date
I
on the happenings of this stuff?
I will.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
man.
And it turns out you only need a charter number and you need a routing number from the FDIC. It's not like a bank has a lot more regulation around it. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But it can be done, and
Okay.
that's the thing. I think I'll say it this way: like if you just sit home and do nothing and just kind of go with the flow, I think you're actually being part of the problem. And maybe that's hard for some people to swallow, but what if we were all trying to do something to be a part of the solution? Just something. Just one thing.
This is the interesting thing where people seem to try to distance. They try to silo different aspects of their life. And they say, I'm a moral person because I don't do bad things and I'm kind to my friends and neighbors and the people I meet. But when it comes to, for example, the self-discipline to control their consumption,
Yeah.
divert their resources in a direction like what you're just talking about, instead of an Amazon or a big box thing, even though it's more expensive. This is what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to the price. It's going to come down to the delivery, like how quickly it can get to them. There is some kind of inherent overlap of morality here. I can't bring the Torah to bear in this because I don't even know how to I can't have a verse that I can pull and say, you need to employ your neighbor Paul instead of, the big guy.
Well, we'll ask the question, what is the actual cost? So if you go for convenience, if you go for cost, you're going to ultimately fuel monopoly. And Amazon has proven this over and over, that they'll take a proven product, proven business model, and they'll duplicate it, undercut, because guess what? They can afford to undercut in this industry because they're making a higher profit over here. So this becomes a loss leader, right? Until you can't keep up and you have to drop out. And then what do? They raise the prices. So what's convenient and cost effective today, you're actually digging your own hole because you're going to pay more later. And you're not going to, like, we want competition. Competition is healthy. But when you have a behemoth like Amazon, they can just kind of, and I've got story after story after story of people that I know that, had like a tripod or that they were selling, or a fishing pole, or you name it, where Amazon has come in and cut them out. It's a cutthroat thing, but that's what you're dealing with versus the idea of supporting, your brother. So ask yourself the question, what is the actual cost?
They did it with the Kindle and the bookstores.
Yeah.
The bookstores, remember the neighborhood bookstores? That was a thing.
Yep.
And then Amazon decided it's okay to lose money on books for a long time for us because we're making money.
Right.
And let's do that, and let's drop the price of this book to a point where, exactly what you're saying, a local bookstore won't be able to turn a profit. Yeah. And now we confiscate that bit of the market, or we win it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not the first ones to do it either. So look at Walmart, right? Walmart's kind of the same concept. And I remember, so I'm going to be 40, by the time people are watching this, I'm going to be 47. So I remember, like 35, 40 years ago when Walmart still closed on Sunday. Do you remember that? Maybe. I don't know. I remember that. But remembering going with my dad to the meat market, well, now the only meat market in town is through Walmart. And all of those small local shops got shut down because of that. So it's a perfect example, again, of that monopoly kind of taking over. So we have to think differently, and we have to be willing. We have to have a different goal in mind. The goal is not cheap. The goal is not, and you still have quality. That's what capitalism, that's part of capitalism, is you have a better product and people will ultimately buy it, even if it's more. So I think we still need to just think of, what is the goal? Why am I doing this? Why am I purchasing this versus, from my brother or whatever? Or why can't, if we have a huge need for a shoe store, then let's figure out what it takes to build a shoe store, or get an online shoe store that, those are the things that we need to start asking. I got a friend right now who's white labeling soap. I got another friend who's white labeling salt. So the other part to this is, we don't have to go for all of the flashy fad type gadgets and this, that. Go with the basics. It's what people use every day. Spices.
Explain for the audience what white labeling is. And this is the same thing you did with coffee? No. What's that?
Yeah. So basically, they're taking a product that somebody else manufactures, and they're putting their brand, their name, and they're promoting their name and their brand to their community. So if you go on, and a friend of mine taught me to do this. I didn't learn that. I didn't wake up one day and know this. But if you look on the back of any package, it might say manufactured by, or manufactured for, developed for, produced for. So that means that the brand did not make that themselves. They subcontracted somebody. That's kind of what we're doing with the coffee.
Only it's actually making it. No, Well,
we're on the manufacturing side.
Okay.
So you'll see roasted by Empyr Coffee.
Wow.
So,
that's cool.
And you can private label anything, from shirts to salt to battery cases for your phone to you name it. You look on Amazon and you search for a product, you'll see 50 different, versions of it. And most of those are going to be made by the same company.
Katie is going to kill me if I don't get to any of her questions. She sent me a bunch of questions.
Got it.
But I don't know if you have any burning things that you want to discuss too.
Well, I do want to say this.
Let's go to that, and then we'll go to a couple like rapid fire Katie questions.
Okay. So how does this all play into a congregation or a community or something, a charity or whatever that's mission minded? Well, because of the entrepreneurial side of what our community is doing, we're able to host things like our Freedom Conference series. We're teaching people how to eat healthier, how to worship freer, how to parent better, all these things that are really hard, and we're trying to navigate all these things. So we're able to provide that. Our congregation recently rescued 53 girls and women who were being sex trafficked in India because we had the funds from entrepreneurship. If we're solely focused on what we can do, how we can grow our church, or how maybe the pastor can get a better salary or a better car, whatever, we're missing out on all of these ministry opportunities. So that seems like a big thing, and it is a big thing, but it's also a very small thing. Right behind those 53 girls, there's 10,000 more. There's 10,000. You could throw billions of dollars at India or Malawi, where trafficking is crazy. You could throw all this money at, and it still wouldn't solve the problem, right? So on one hand, I tell people you have to start somewhere, because really little things add up to big things. You have to start somewhere. So we have a Freedom House now in India where we have 53 girls. And when I say girls, I mean it's sick to even think about. But 6, 7, 8-year-olds that have been trafficked, and we're raising funds to help their medical conditions, their spiritual healing, and trying to develop sustainable things that they can do, like gardening and food preservation and all these things, so that they can support themselves and not be dependent. But that takes funding. It takes funding. Where do we think all that funding ever comes from? It comes from business. It comes from commerce. If you get a paycheck, that's because of a business. If you get a K-1 because you own your company, that's from a business. It's commerce that drives all the ministry. Unless, and I will say this, there have been times when we've pulled a gold coin out of a random fish mouth, and God provides, and that does happen. But maybe God's just asking us to be faithful with your loaf and fish. It's not asking you to feed everybody. He's asking you to be faithful with what's in your pocket. And that's kind of what hurts sometimes,
So in the end, the stakes are much higher than, is this convenient? Is this... Right. It sounds...
Count the cost.
It sounds as if this very, lives and sanity of thousands or millions of people are dependent upon us doing this part of the Great Commission, or part of what the Bible would have us do.
Yeah. And you can just be a consumer, or you can be a contributor. It's kind of that simple.
How did you get involved in the helping of these women?
It's truly a God story. One of our elders has this missions page, and for years and years it had 200 people that followed it. And I don't know if Facebook messed up and upped an algorithm or something, but all of a sudden there was 12,000 people on this Facebook group. And he was getting messages from missionaries and pastors all over the world, WhatsApp calls, the whole, Facebook Messenger calls, all of this stuff. And, a lot of them, they're needing money, they're in need, and we get that, right? So anyway, in the middle of the night one night, he's woken up, he walks downstairs, keeps his phone downstairs, and it's like 3:00 in the morning, and this messenger call comes up, and he's like, he just felt a tug to answer it. Well, it turns out it's this woman who's been serving these trafficking victims for a couple of months, and we just felt like maybe we're supposed to support what she's doing. We had heard that to rescue one person costs like $3,000. So you can imagine, this is a huge step. There's like 50 girls. So started doing the math, right? And but we felt called to at least investigate it, and we felt like God was just tugging on our hearts. And I think he told one of the elders at one point, said, "Go get my girls, go get my girls." And so after that, we were all in. We'd like figure out like what we got to figure out, and let's figure out how to get these girls out of the situation. And India is just a crazy place. Every time we think we figured out India, we have not. It's like every time they say it's going to cost X, you need to have like X squared, and that's usually what it costs. But anyway, long story short, God truly met our fishes and loaves. We had a donation one week that said it was just $3,000 cash, and it said for India. And this is before we had even fully said, yeah, we're going to do this. But we were in that process. Well, we ended up talking to this missionary over there, and she said that the person who owned and was controlling these girls and trafficking these girls said that he would allow all of them go for $3,000. And those two things happen independently of each other. So it was a confirmation. It truly was a confirmation. It was like, we cannot not do this, God's hand's been all over it the entire time. We had a pastor, there's a pastor, David Roy down in Florida, who was praying, and he's helping to support the whole mission. But he was praying, and God showed him a vision of a house with a yellow wall and a palm tree. Well, we ended up sharing this with the missionary over there, and she started freaking out. She's like, "Praise God, praise God, praise God." One of the houses that she was looking at had a yellow wall with a palm tree. It's just ridiculous how God is orchestrating this whole thing. It's so much so that we can't. It'd be like saying no to God.
Wow. Wow. And
Incredible.
Go ahead. I mean, where are the girls now? Like, they've been removed from this guy.
They've been relocated. We're in the process. So it's kind of a triage situation. And, I guess I'd, welcome anybody if they had any questions or whatever, they want to get involved with it, that, maybe they can contact me through you or whatever. But they've been relocated. They're in a safe place now. They're in a house. We're providing food and water to the best of our ability. They all need new clothing. We need to invest in some things that would be, again, entrepreneurial for them. So India is very strange. I'll just explain it because maybe some people want to know. Let's say your husband gets hurt on the job over there, and he needs a medical operation. Well, okay, so he can go and he can get the treatment that he needs, but it may be way more than your family could provide for, and they'll keep the person in the hospital and keep accruing the medical bills until you pay. There's a lot of pressure. It's not like here where you can go and you can pay later. They will not let you leave. So let's say, maybe the wife goes and gets a loan so they can pay that off and get the husband out. Well, it's going to have, typically it has so much interest by the time that they go back to pay it off and start paying it off. It's accrued so much that there's just no way. So they'll say, well, you're going to either, they're trafficking the mother, and if the mother doesn't perform those activities, they'll go after the children. So that's why you see a lot of times you'll see young children that are being trafficked in India. And then the sick thing is, the reason why the wife did that to begin with was to try to save her family. But a lot of times if they go back to their husband or to their village, they'll do horrific things, and they're considered defiled, and we've heard stories where they'll even like cut off a limb or something to mark that person, for life. So it's a very drastically different place. It's an evil place. It's evil. It's not that India is an evil place, but evil is abounding there. And so, yeah, I mean, something needs to be done. And we could have, this is like anything in life. You can look back at something and say, yeah, that's such a big problem that it's like, it's not even worth starting. Or you can say, let's just do what God put in front of us. Let's start there and see where it goes. Well, now we have, we 3 of them were pregnant. And so we've been, addressing these medical issues, and 3 of them are pregnant, and they, would go to the midwife and all this, that sort of thing. Well, now the midwife was pregnant, and she's wanting to come in and be a part of the Freedom House because, I mean, truly it's free there. They can't go back to their village. They can't interact with society like we would here. There's not a lot of grace or forgiveness there. It's a horrific situation. So, but now we're having others come and wanting to be a part of the Freedom House.
Wow.
Start by planting the seed and watch God do something.
Wow. I am speechless.
I know. Well, we are too. I mean, all I can do is really just tout what God's done. Like we really haven't done anything. Probably get in the way, but we're trying. And, we haven't fully raised all of the funds every month, and God's provided. He had somebody sell a huge amount of gold, and that they were sitting on, and one of our elders was telling the story, and they felt compelled to donate. They donated several $1,000s that paid for some medical bills, and
when we're all done, I'll have you give us links to where people can contact you or reach out to you and find out more about all this.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
Is very important.
But if everybody does a little bit, we can actually accomplish a lot. For us, we call ourselves, our community's Freedom Hill community. And I think the most important word there is community. Everybody's important. Everybody has something to add. And I think, it's great when you get those $100,000 checks and you can just go do whatever. And we may get some of those too. I don't know. But how awesome is it when you can say everybody here gave something? Everybody gave a part of and was a part of the solution or whatever. I think that's just so special. And that's what we strive for and everything. But you can really see it playing out when you can do some big things like this. And there's a lot more to do. Because like I said, there are 10,000 girls right behind these 53. So there's a lot to be done. But now God's beginning to give these girls a voice. If you go study how the underground church in China started. I believe it's Heidi Baker's grandfather. Go study that. Go read about that. It started with orphans on the street, who then became the like they ran with the current of God prophetically, and they took the truth of the gospel and the kingdom to the entire nation. It's like now we are trying to be like the underground church in China, fearless, in the face of martyrdom and all this. I believe that's what can happen in India. So let's everybody just do a little bit, $10 here, $15 here, whatever.
The unspeakable horrors that you're describing and that I've seen in recent months about all this trafficking stuff.
Yeah.
Is horrible.
It's everywhere.
I don't even know where to start with. I'm glad you're doing something.
You can get. Yeah.
I feel like. Let me get to Katie's question.
Okay, come on, Katie.
I just want to at least.
This one's for Katie.
She would get mad at me. All right, she's a bunch here.
I do what I can for my fellow husband.
Now this would be jumping back to. You choose. Do you want to go back to business stuff, or do you want to keep it with like Torah community stuff?
We can do business. Yeah.
She says, do you have a process for vetting business ideas? I don't even know if that will apply.
Yeah. I think we would all maybe say this, we thought about it, is who are you doing it with? We just started a tow truck company, and I was really praying about it. And I was thinking about how much of a benefit it would be, number one, to the guy who's going to be running and operating the business and the truck and all of this stuff. And that would be such a blessing, and it would be a blessing for me because I've got things that I'm not where I want to be. I got a lot of things that I'm trying to do. But it came down to number one, who, and if you think about why people wouldn't start a business, it's because they've been burned by somebody. So I think maybe the first place we should start with is who. The other thing is, in vetting a business opportunity, will it get me to the goal? What is the goal? For me, it could be I want to empower this person, or it could be I want to raise an extra $10,000 a month so I can give to India, or it could be there's an opportunity to feed the community, or whatever it is. Like, start with who, and I think immediately go to why would I do this? What is this going to accomplish? And I would say, usually for me, it's never about like finances. It's usually never about that. It's more like what could we accomplish through that? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So who's it with? What's it going to accomplish? These are some of the first questions.
Yeah, and so this goes back to the coffee company. So when we started the coffee company, it's a commodity, right? The prices are constantly fluctuating. It can be volatile, and there's a lot of competition. There's a coffee shop almost on every corner. You can get coffee at work for free sometimes. You're having coffee at home. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much competition. So with coffee, it was, okay, we have to go big if we're going to do this. And nobody knows us, so we have to do it in a way that it's going to make enough money to support everybody. And so we have to do volume. We have to go with volume. But we can't compete with all these big names who have all of these massive roasters and all of that. We had to do it very strategically in evaluating the opportunity. And I don't know how to roast, so that's a problem, right? So I needed to find somebody who could roast. I went through 5 different people, including a family member, who all kind of didn't want to take advantage of the opportunity, and maybe they didn't see it. I'm probably more of a visionary in that respect, But I found myself at a coffee shop, and I Googled coffee roaster near me because I didn't know what else to do. I had been through 5, and I had this huge deal coming, and I needed a coffee roaster. Ended up leading me to the guy that I'm partnered with now, and he does an amazing job. He's just an incredible guy and cares a lot about people and cares about his craft and the product that he produces. And he's detailed. He's a genius. He's just a genius. So that made sense for me, right? But a coffee shop wouldn't have made sense because you can't do volume with a coffee shop. You can't do the volume that we needed. So we recently did one deal that was it was like 3 years worth of coffee sales from one coffee shop in one deal. But not just evaluating like an acquisition or like a business opportunity, but evaluate the lead too. Evaluate the client, the customer. Is it gonna pan out? Sometimes it doesn't. But you at least need to do some math, right? And find out why you want to do that.
Whoa. This leads into kind of back to the working with people in your community.
Yeah.
For better or worse, because your coffee roaster may or may not believe the same way you do.
Right.
But he actually came through like when the rubber hit the road.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are some of the things that have to be considered in business as well. I mean, you may love this guy who believes the same way you do, but maybe he just is too busy with something else. He doesn't have the same vision. He may just not,
but
he may not know as much about roasting.
Yeah. I did go through all of those scenarios. Yeah. So
you tried. It's like
you
would have.
I tried.
Hey, maybe somebody. No, I don't want to. It sounds like your roaster's good. But
yeah, and I've gone to some of our Hebraic friends and said, hey, what do you think about using this as a fundraising tool? And I think there really should be. Look, there's Black Rifle for the 2A people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't there be a coffee for the Hebraic people? And we can literally use a commodity that we utilize every day and use it as a fundraising mechanism to fund all kinds of ministry. Why not? So that would be my challenge to all of the Hebraic people out there. And if you have a product you want to sell, bring that to me too, and we'll buy that.
The circle.
We'll promote
life.
it. Yes.
It's the circle of money
Yes.
life.
Yes.
We gotta have a board game too. No,
Yes.
but I agree with you, man. All right, we'll just do one or two of these more.
Sure,
and then
sure.
After that, then you just tell us where people can find you and anything you're working on now.
Got it, yeah.
And that sort of thing. All right, next with Katie. What do you think the Torah observant community seems to be especially drawn? Why do you think the Torah observant community seems to be especially drawn to entrepreneurship? I alluded to this being a thing, but
we are a peculiar people at the end of the day, right? We don't fit. We're a little bit rebellious in a way because you had to rebel against Babylon. You had to rebel against the system. And I think that's why we do see a lot of people trying to try their hand at entrepreneurship and starting businesses and that sort of thing. It's just kind of built into us. And we're built to be free. Employment is slavery. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, I had a friend who would always say, like, if you go on a mission trip, can you just make that decision, or who do you have to talk to? If you have to talk to anybody, then you're not free to do it. So are you actually doing what God wants you to do, or you have to clear that with your employer first? And do they pay you enough that you can afford to take off work, or you know what I mean? So we're built to be free people. We need to start acting like it.
What advice do you have about scaling a business so that a solopreneur doesn't become their own bottleneck? I think that this is probably pretty important for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, how do you level up from that one point of where it's like just you're trying to do it all, you can do it all, but You can't do it fast enough.
Without making any mistakes?
You got to start well. You can't do it all.
I think, well, the believer in me wants to say we need to pray. We need to be specific in our prayers, and we need to step out in faith a lot of times. Sometimes we get stuck doing the things we know how to do. One of the things we did early on is we outsourced our graphics work. And that's something that I can do maybe at 75% of what a professional could do it at, but it might take me 2 days where it might take them an hour. And so it's actually, again, counting the cost. What's the cost of me spending 2 days on a graphic design versus paying somebody $100? What's my time worth? So I think scaling is maybe utilizing the people around you or finding a way to outsource some of those smaller tasks. So it really frees you up to drive the vision of your company. You know what I mean? We always would say you're either a passenger in your company or you're driving it. You need to be the driver. You need to be the one that's setting the tone, setting the pace, and outsource the rest. And you'll see Elon Musk, or you'll hear those guys kind of talking about that same thing. I really believe it's true. Outsource things. I outsourced the roasting, for example. We outsourced the accounting. I'm okay with numbers, but I shouldn't be the detail. I should be the big macro vision person. Maybe the best way to say it is look at the things that are taking up the majority of your time and see what's necessary for you to do that you're the only person that can do. Keep those. That's fine. But if there's anything you can outsource it. A friend of mine he actually would pay for a lawn service. Now, I like mowing the lawn. It's relaxing for me. It's kind of, that downtime that I need. But if I'm going to spend 2 hours doing it, what is that actually worth? I could pay somebody $40 or $50 to do it or something like that, and use my time more where it's more valuable.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is look at acquisition, because as an example, if I have a coffee company, right, and we're white labeling, I could potentially acquire a label company, and now all of their clients they have the opportunity to become my clients. So now I've just massively scaled. I think that the statement, it's been out on the web for some time now, but 90% of millionaires got there through real estate, but 100% of billionaires got there through acquisition. So if you truly want to scale quickly, we're actually looking at acquiring several companies. I mean, this is something if somebody's looking for an exit plan, or if they're looking for someone to scale their company, we're looking to invest and buy companies so that we can collectively use each other's contacts and that sort of thing. Why can't the salt people also buy from the coffee people who are also part of the soap people? You just tripled your exposure overnight for all three. So, and Amazon's done it, so why can't we do it?
What's something new entrepreneurs spend a lot of time on that doesn't actually matter? Ooh.
Oh, gosh. That's a good question. I think it may be a little bit different for different people, but I would say you probably need to be focusing most of your time on marketing. And that was something a good friend of mine always used to say, focus on marketing, because that's where sales come from. If your activity is not driving sales, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? For me, it was accounting. Accounting doesn't drive sales. So I'm going to I was spending way too much time doing that. And we support a lot of charities through the business, and we're doing payouts every month. It's like almost like every other week we're doing payouts to some group somewhere in the world. And it was just bogging my time down. And I know how to do it. I can do it, but should I be doing it, right? Graphics was the same thing for me. Now, if you can do something very quickly, you have to do the equation. You have to do the math and see if it's worth it for you to do it or somebody else to do it.
Sounds like oftentimes it's not worth it for you to do it. It sounds like
It really isn't. It really isn't. Well, and as a business owner, you're the only one that can do certain things. You know, you're the Michael Jordan. Give me the ball at the buzzer. I'm going to take the shot. That's you. Now, you could be the water boy, or, you know, the person that grabs up the towels at the end, or sweeps the sweat off the floor, or whatever. But that's not who you were built to be. So again, be the owner. And you know, I know there's challenges. Like it costs money it takes money to outsource things, right? So if you're in that situation, as soon as you can outsource some things and you get to enough sales where you can outsource, start doing it. It will free you up to do what only you can do. The graphics design guy is not going to be the guy that sells to the retail chain. That's going to be you. Do the things you can do.
That's great. Yeah. Two more. What are some common financial mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make, and how can they be avoided?
Well, the thing that comes to mind, and this is a challenge that my wife and I face kind of on a daily basis, it seems. Maybe you've heard this, but money, it's currency. There's a current to it. There's a flow to it. And as soon as you stop the flow, you're done. You're done. So I would say, well, I think maybe some people would have a different perspective and maybe a valid perspective, but as soon as I start hanging on to things and start grabbing on to the finances and holding it super close to the chest where it's not able to flow, we've just cut ourselves off. We just cut our legs off. You can't move. You have to be willing to take risks, and a lot of times that includes finances. We sold our house at the peak of the market. We got a great price for our house. We had a good amount of equity, and we used that as a springboard for all of our businesses that we have now. We were in a situation where we kind of had to, but it was like, are you going to take that risk so you can have the flow, or are you going to restrict it? Everything has to flow. I used to have this pastor who would talk about giving and tithing, that God's going to give you, he's going to give you something. You got your hand, you're receiving it like a funnel, and it's going to funnel out of you. But as soon as you start grabbing onto it, it closes up the flow of the funnel. And so to me, that would be the biggest mistake, is to completely restrict your spending. You could also look at it like this. You can either figure out how to purchase assets that will, again, have a flow of revenue into you, or you can try to figure out how to reduce expenses. Like, that's really the only two things you can do. And to me, spending and investing is the way
To bring on.
It's a way to bring the revenue in. Cutting expenses doesn't really do anything. It cuts expenses. It puts more in your pocket, but again, it's restricted. So if you're going to do that, and just focus solely on cutting expenses, you can do that for a little bit. But when you get that next nest egg or whatever, try to figure out what asset you can buy. It could be a $500 pressure washer. It could be $1,000 sandblaster. I'm looking at one of those right now to invest in. It could be a $50,000 tow truck. It could be a $90,000 roaster. It could be, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can generate. And look for things that generate. I think this is one of the reasons why tithing is down, like drastically down. I think it's like less than 2% of people tithe now. Because we're in an employment situation. An employment situation is a 1-to-1, always a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you work 10 hours, you get paid for 10 hours. If you work for 5 hours, you get paid for 5 hours, right? There's not really a true increase. Maybe you get a raise or something, and you could argue that. But look at what God called wealth in the scripture. It was your fields increased, your animals increased, your household increased, your children increased, all this stuff. It's all the agricultural elements. It's things that have exponential growth. You plant one seed, you might get 800 einkorn seeds out of that one. You have, I don't know, you eat a rabbit or whatever, and you got like 50 rabbits by the end of the month, ducks, chickens. Like, that's why we're drawn to those things, because there's exponential growth. Those are the things that you tithe on. If we did more of that, I think our tithe would go up. Now, maybe we have to start taking eggs and we need a bigger basket or something, But you get my point, right? So there's exponential growth. That's where we're supposed to tithe on.
So that can be solved by changing their profession once again.
I think so.
I agree. All right, last one here. Do you take any special measures with your business in order to keep Shabbat?
Being an owner is like very helpful for sure. I do try to shut down. I'm reminded of it every week, because I think Shabbat is not just, hey, I showed up. I think there's a preparation behind it. And some weeks, like this last week, I was late. It was already dark when I got home, and now you get the time change, so it's dark so much sooner. I really truly do try my best to be home before on Shabbat. Now, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, whatever, I might work well into the evening, but that's supposed to teach us on Shabbat. It's supposed to teach us preparation. And so, yeah, I do my best to kind of shut things down and start realigning my focus to family and the Word and Yahweh, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The challenge, I think, comes when you're subcontracting people, and there's like we had a delivery, and the delivery took they drove over the weekend. So it's like, what do you do? I mean, I think you just have to prayerfully consider what you're doing. If it's within your ability to control it, shut down. That's the best you can do, and God's gonna look at what you did with you. He's not going to judge you for somebody else always, right? Or maybe some instances scripturally. But for the most part, do what you can do. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to tell people? Anything either along the lines of what we've been talking about, or anything else? Yeah,
I wanted to, when I was coming into this, and I hope I did an okay job at this, but I really felt like, people need to be inspired and empowered and encouraged. Those three words. So I guess what I just want to say is, I think it's time that we start wearing our seat on the outside of our pants. It's time to start looking peculiar. It's time to do the things that not the way the world's doing it, but the way that the kingdom is meant to be. It's really time to start living it. And we need to start sticking together. there's so much backbiting and dissension and division. I mean, I don't know if you guys see it, but I see it everywhere. And I hear things from different congregations that, yeah, this happened, this split happened. I just feel like we need to make every effort to forgive. We need to make every effort to operate from a place of faith instead of fear, and operate from a place of love, which is the opposite of fear. So much, I really believe that. I really believe that. And I think that there's not a whole lot that the Lord couldn't do through us if we would just focus on coming together as a community. It's not that you have to agree on everything. Everybody knows that. There are probably a lot of people that disagree with me. Go watch our live stream, and I'm sure you'll find something. You know, I find stuff that I disagree with what I said. I'm gonna repent. But find ways to unify. Find ways to come together instead of judging and finding ways to be divided. I really feel like we need to do that. There's so much in the world to do. There's so many atrocities. I mean, human trafficking is just one of them, right? It's just one of them. How do we do it? We come together as a city on a hill. We come together. The light shines brighter. It's a thing we talk about for the kids, right? Hide your light. It's time to unleash the light of Yeshua in this world. It just really is. So I would encourage everybody to start thinking differently, start praying more, start loving better, figure out how to love better. God, change my heart, change who I am, renew my mind. I don't want to think like Babylon anymore. I want to think like kingdom. I want to think like you. I want to have your character, and let that kind of be the cry of your heart. And I'm just saying, watch God meet you there. Watch God meet you wherever you are. He has incredible things that he wants to accomplish, not just through me, not just through Freedom Hill, but through you and through your family and through your children and through your congregation. God wants to do so much, and he's looking for people who are willing to say, here I am. Like, send me. I'm willing to go. I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to lay everything down to do this your way. So that's what I would leave people with. From an inspirational standpoint, I mean, we're doing our best to expand and provide opportunities for people all over the U.S. and all over the globe, really. Pakistan, India, we're trying to start taxi service in India. It's like, it's unbelievable. But I would say if anyone really does have a situation where they're trying to sell their company, they're trying to, maybe they don't have, the children don't want to take on their company or whatever, that we would definitely take a look at that. We're in kind of an acquisition merger mode right now. Be watching for the Hebraic Credit Union and Venture Capital Fund. We do have an investment group, private investment group that we are always looking for opportunities. But that concept of coming together and having the business meeting, that needs to happen, and we want to be a part of that. Sometimes it's just knowing that somebody's with you and believes in you, and I think if we can do that we would be able to think that Yahweh's proud of what we've done, that Yahweh's behind. He can get behind unity, If anybody wants to contact me, you can just kind of probably find it in the link description of this. And there's different things like the India project, what Empyr's doing. And if you need just encouragement, I still have like a pastor's heart. So I would love to just encourage and inspire people to step out. And so you can find all that.
We'll link I'll talk to you after this. We'll link everything up at the bottom. Man, thank you so much. This has been a blast.
Thank
I
you.
want to keep talking. I feel like they're going to kick us out at some point, and we're going to run out of memory. But thank you, man.
Dude, thank you.
We got to do this
Appreciate
again.
it. Yeah.
I feel like we just starting to scratch the surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
No wonder Joe Rogan has 4-hour podcasts.
I know.
It's like,
I know. There's so much to talk about.
all right. Well, until next time then.
Yeah. Amen.